Good evening, everybody. This is Thursday, June 26th, 2025. I have about 4:05. This is the Finance Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And I'm looking at the agenda. We don't have anybody from the public here. Does anybody on the committee have any comment to make apart from what's on the? Oh, you see, closing the door. Thank you, Paul. Does anybody have any comment on anything that's not on the agenda?
I would just say, I think we owe a big debt of thanks to Rich for all the incredible work that you did to make the vote happen Monday, make it happen so smoothly Monday and Tuesday. I owe you thanks as a member of this committee. I owe you thanks as a taxpayer in Eastham. So my applause, Rich. And same to Jackie. It sounds like Jackie's not here.
I think it was honestly a no-brainer, and I know people don't like paying more money, but this is certainly a better path than just you can see it starting now in that independent article with the Wellfleet IA process. I think people will be, be a few years, we'll have some bumps, but I think people will be happy down the road, the next generation for sure. So.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I had a lot of feedback from people on the finance committee, the letter that you read out loud at the meeting. They thought it was great. They thought the content was fantastic. I know there was a lot of people that contributed to it. And they thought it was great. And they thought, Mary, you did such a good job. Because we know she must have been reading, but it didn't sound like she was reading. Your pace, they said, was just perfect. It wasn't too fast. It wasn't too slow. You really got the message out there. So
Oh, thank you. I practiced for
you,
2 days in a row.
it didn't sound like that.
It shows. It was.
I did. I did really.
Really
In the morning, in the afternoon, and night. Sitting in different chairs.
And people were smiling. Well, you probably were, focused on what you were doing. I know I was reading the audience. They were receptive. They were smiling. I got a good vibe as you were reading it. So
I didn't realize that every time anybody was speaking, they were on the screen because of course I'm looking at what I'm reading and I didn't realize until afterwards when I'm looking and listening to other people talk that they're on the screen. Anyway, yeah, so. So I'm going to go on to item number 3 of the agenda, and that's the minutes of May 15th. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 15th? Roy? Do I have a second?
second.
Is there any discussion? And I sent you an email with some requests to change some things. I think you were probably away.
Oh, no, I put that change.
Oh, you changed, oh, because
Sorry, if I have to send you a copy, but.
you did send me a copy, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, very good. Okay, I have Roy, Jermaine and Patty. Yeah, and any further discussion on the minutes of May 15th? All in favor? Ron, Fred? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Okay. And I'm looking at the agenda and we're now down to item number 4, the reserve fund, and Mara has given out the information, so I'm gonna turn it over to you because I haven't even looked at it yet, so.
And Fred and Ron, the email a few hours ago, I sent an email that this list is in that email if you want to take a look at it. But there's a list of 6 requests for reserve fund transfers, and I'll go through them each. I think most of these are expected. First is, as you might recall from last year, the state started billing us a year late for weights and measures they took over from the town of Barnstable. So, we didn't get that notice in time to get it in the budget, so this is the second and hopefully final year. Well, it is the final year because for FY 26, it was added to the inspectional services budget. But for FY 25, we have a bill that was unbudgeted, for the weights and measures inspections from the state. 5,546. The second area, the second request is. This might be a few extra bucks in there, because that seems like a bit extra to me, but. The hazardous waste removal day is substantially more expensive. That's a function of two things. The cost of hosting the day has gone up. But I think the biggest thing was that level of participation and disposal associated with all that amount of participation. And so, we're asking for 21,161. And so, I'll be talking to the DPW director this upcoming budget cycle to make sure we get better pricing on that. Or maybe even a consideration of doing something a little bit different. Right now, it's 2 days. One, we participate with Orleans. 1 day is at the Orleans transfer station, and Orleans and Eastham residents can go there. And then the second is an Eastham transfer station where Orleans and Eastham residents can go. And I just find it odd that the Eastham one is much more widely attended.
It is, so this is the East End one.
It's both.
It's both.
But the Eastham one by itself was. The total cost was well over 35,000 for the two events. Of which 2/3 of that cost or so roughly was the Eastham event. So I just, we'll have to drill down on what's causing that, but if people have a lot of stuff to dispose of, I guess that's.
But you expect the opposite because of the population differences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was it 21,000 over budget or?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was?
And what the last year?
The budget's 25,000.
25, and that was.
Last year, we were. I think a little bit short, but we didn't ask for it, for instance, so we had savings and other lines that covered it.
Last year it was 5,546.
Oh, the lunch doesn't.
But we kept the budget at that level, the 25, 25. Anyway,
I think we didn't.
what do we for 26? Yeah.
I think we went up, but not $20,000 of it. I think the contemplation is, do we need 2 days, and that's what I really want to find out from DPW is. Are our residents going to Orleans at all, and if they're not, then why don't we just do the 1 day?
Yeah.
And conversely, if people are coming from Orleans here instead, either we could propose a 50-50 split.
Might be a different way to go about.
Yeah,
this.
yeah, rather than
Sure.
us.
This is, unexpected in a sense, but we kind of knew what was coming, is all the outreach and costs associated with special town meeting, so. The sound person, the chair rentals, electronic voting, not chair rentals, electronic voting, the chairs too. All those extra costs. Printing, being there, we did a lot of printing and postage. For mailings, mailing all the warrants to all residents, all households in Eastham, so
Mhm.
all adds up, a little over $44,531.
Does that include, did we have to pay extra for the clickers?
Yes, electronic voting,
That part of the 44?
it's probably one of the biggest parts of it.
Yeah.
It'll work it.
Mhm.
There were some extra legal costs. We had, reviewing of bond counsel, our own town council on the articles and motions. And since it's such a significant project, we had bond counsel do extra review to make sure it passed muster with the SRF program, the way the vote was taken. 19,000, I think. The explanation here is a cost associated with wastewater special town meeting. Town council does go to town meeting and do a lot of prep, so that is a big part of the cost. But I don't think it was 19,000, so there might have been some other legal issues contributing to that 19,000. It's not just that special town meeting and wastewater, but that is a big part.
Was there anything in particular, not any, it's at all associated with the wastewater? As far as legal fees were concerned, some other project in town?
Yes, we had some settlements
Mm.
that we had to negotiate that aren't typical for
Mm.
a typical year. I mean, they're typical, but don't typically happen every year. The retirement assessment, this has existed last year as well, but we just absorbed it within the operating budget. And this year I decided that I wanted to just highlight it and put it out there. And this is just my error, I would say. I actually have it in our budget workbooks under our retirement calculation. We get an assessment for the town of Eastham for our retirement assessment, see that, I put in there a reduction for an early payment discount. So we take, put all these little elements in there so you know what we're doing or not doing with the budget. And I even have a line item that says tri-town pensions, but for some reason I just haven't been picking it up. But we do get assessed after the end of the year in the Barnstable County Retirement Association. An amount of money, in this case, $47,320 to pay the costs of the pension of the old tri-town plant.
Tim Orleans?
Orleans, Brewster, Eastham Groundwater Protection District, which was an municipal agreement for, I think, 30 years. When that plant dissolved, those employees were laid off and retired, but they do have got their pension, and so Retirement Association sends us a bill for those
How many years is that going on?
until they're no longer retired.
Until they retire elsewhere.
No, but the reason I'm asking is last year it was 7,628, so this is quite a bit. More people aren't retired, I mean, it's the same people that were, yeah, this is last year's. The top is the top item.
Yeah, I think it was more aligned with, it wasn't quite as much as this, but it was probably about 40,000. I think the difference being is, there was a budgeting error on our own assessment, so we had extra money, and so that was the only amount needed. This year I
And
was
we
right,
don't have it, so.
this year I was running the money on our assessment, there was no extra, so that whole amount was needed. And then finally, not sure what's going on with streetlights, but electric rate has gone up, so that's the reason. But we are short on streetlights. A lot of these costs, streetlights, I don't know why, I might make some modifications to how we vote our budget this year. Seems kind of crazy to have streetlights, for $8,000 as its own item. So, to the extent we combine these things, when they're combined, you can utilize savings from other accounts to fund shortages and things like this. But this is how town meeting voted it. They voted a line for $8,000 for streetlights, and we're at 9,500, so we have to get a transfer.
We've discussed buying streetlights.
And the work in progress. Every town in Cape Cod owns their streetlights.
Except us?
And so a decision was made many years ago not to participate. That was like, I think back in 2003, there was a big effort. Eastham was the only one that didn't do it. And now we're working with Cape Light Compact. Actually, Orleans Select Board member Kevin Galligan is a retiree from there, and he's got a lot of knowledge of Eversource and the whole streetlight issue. So he's been working for it on our behalf, and Eversource has decided they don't want to sell us their streetlights. So if they do, they're asking for a big amount of money. Everybody else bought them for $10. So
Another example.
we have to keep working on that.
That's crazy.
But it's becoming more and more of an issue, because the interesting thing about streetlights, if you have modern streetlights, you can replace them with
The LED.
LEDs.
LED.
But since technology has expanded so much, they also come with wireless transmitters that you can put in on the top, and you can actually create a wireless mesh network, for that as a service. So that's my interest in doing it, not only going to put on the LEDs, reduce the cost, but now we own that utility and we can use it for something like developing wireless in certain parts of town.
And that cuts the resource out. Good move.
Rich, does that include the lights that you travel, the alerts that you travel on Route 6 and it says to you, you know, slow down, you're traveling at 48?
No,
No, you're talking about
Those are
the
separate.
The police.
Like the police.
Those are,
police flag.
okay, I just was curious if those were included
no, those are just trailers the police department owns and maintains and.
to slow people down, yeah, okay.
Those are solar charged.
Mm-hmm.
So total of all those requests is 139,058
Mhm.
out of your 200,000.
There's one last question on streetlights. So is that the charge for the power they use, or
Yes.
is it they rent for the?
No, it's just electric.
It's just like.
They own it, they've been owning.
Hmm.
So, but they're charging us for the electricity. Some towns back in the day were, maybe hopefully don't get to this point, but I remember a day where town managers or administrators used to tell the police to drive around town and shine their lights on the top of sensors to turn them off, so not use so much electricity. Or you think that's that kind of things that would be pretty rough.
But if you owned them, you'd still be paying for electricity, so where's the savings?
Yeah, it's saving.
No necessarily savings,
Okay.
other than if you retrofit them for
Okay.
LED,
Okay.
but you're owning a potential valuable utility, right?
Mhm.
You're owning space on a pole
Yeah.
that you get for free.
Who does the maintenance and replacements and stuff like that?
You get a maintenance contract.
Okay. So you still handle that yourself,
Yeah.
Tom?
So-
Try bringing that solar collectors efficient enough to power streetlights.
Mhm.
Well, maybe if you own them, you know, that might be a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So, I'm just looking at the bottom line. It adds up to not quite 140,000. And we have a reserve of 200,000, so. Would be not quite, around 60,000 that would become free cash, right?
Right.
We don't use it for anything else, right?
Any questions from the folks that are zooming?
Do you need a motion?
Yeah,
to pass this?
Yes, we need a motion.
I make a motion rather that we appropriate the $139,058.
Second,
Ron?
sure, second.
Oh, you're seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? Ron? Fred, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's Kate, Maine, Ron, second, 9, 0.
More in, I'll just roll into the next request. Which is a little bit different. Those were reserve fund transfers, which is entirely the domain of the finance committee. The next request for transfer is a year-end transfer, it's a separate section of general laws. And the last 2 months of the fiscal year, May and June. You can move money between any appropriation to any other appropriation. That requires a vote of the finance committee and the select board. For example, any of those budget reserve fund transfers, I could have done as a year-end transfer and had used savings from other accounts to fund them, but you know, why? It's, you know, 6 of one, half dozen the other, and I only need 1 vote, so I just put them on the reserve fund. But what we do use the year-end transfer for is for our family support package. Because a couple of you are new to the committee, so you might not know the history. But when the family support package was passed for $490,500, was passed as an override for specific things. And so we want to honor the intent of that override and make sure we're spending the money in accordance with that intent. And so in the year 1, the family support package created what's called an article account for the housing, the preschool program, and nutrition program. those are created as three distinct articles, and the value of having an article is you can maintain article accounts past the end of the fiscal year and roll them over and accumulate funds in them. So in year one, that's how the town did it. In year two, as I came into town, instead of it being a separate article every year, I just put the 490,000 as part of our human services budget. So it's now just part and parcel of our budget. And so that 490 goes into the three categories each year in the operating budget, but as an operating budget, at the end of the year, anything that's unspent closes out and becomes free cash. But that wasn't town meeting's intent. They want to make sure, the intent of that 490 gets used for the family support package. So this procedure allows us to take it out of the operating budget line and move any unspent monies to the article accounts. And that's where we accumulate funds. And just for showing a little report here. And the status of the operating budgets and the article accounts. You can see at the end of each year, the operating budget accounts are zeroed out. And many leftover monies are transferred to the article account. This year, we're anticipating $30,665 of unspent money in the preschool appropriation. And so that's what we're recommending. We're asking you to approve to transfer it from the operating budget into the preschool article. And if we add that to what's previously been accumulated, that gives us just under $235,000 in the preschool article that'll be continued to roll forward and used for those programs in the future. The lunch article, there's nothing new in it this year, because we repurposed it, the select board repurposed it for the preschool program. But we didn't end up needing it because school lunches became free during COVID and still are. So we've just under $440,000 in that article that can be used for lunch and nutrition programs. And then finally, we have the housing program, which is now $100,000 a year we use for the beach plum debt service. So that's being spent. We actually had to take the sum out of the article. Because the first year debt service was 125, not this year and going forward, it will be just enough. But that leaves us $316,000 in the housing article.
So I have a question. So you're saying that under the lunch area, which we're not using because the state's providing that for us, there's a balance of 439,000 in that account.
Yeah.
Should we be considering? I'm assuming, well, I know things are getting a little tight at the state level, but I'm assuming that hasn't changed as far as giving us free lunch.
Hasn't yet.
Yeah.
There is a concern that
With the
That's
current
going away.
state, yeah. Yeah.
Reimbursed by federal money before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
well,
it's,
originally it
it's,
was
that-
COVID, and then when COVID went away, the state took it over.
doesn't it fall under, it's under FDA, right? Or
USDA.
USDA, right,
Mm.
right. So a lot's been,
Do we have any people that are looking for pre-K monies and or childcare that we and you're saying we've got enough money even in that's 235. So are we doing a good enough job telling people we've got this money for people that could use it? I'm just wondering whether we're doing enough to let people know that this project is available for people that have
I
children.
think so, but that's a great point, Mary, and, you saw the impact of the videos and the outreach for wastewater,
Mhm.
because we have Kayla moving from the executive assistant role
To IT.
to a communications role in lieu of replacing our IT project manager.
Mm.
So I think that's proven to be a wise decision. Because they're just getting so much value out of that, but I think Kayla can do some outreach on this program,
Mhm.
promote some of these things that we have done, so I think that's a good point, bring that up.
Is our IT manager move on?
So in our IT department, we had a network manager
Yeah.
and a network technician, and then a new position 4 years ago, was a applications manager. And so that role was supposed to be doing some outreach, website, implementing applications in different departments, like our open gov applications, all our online stuff. So a lot of that stuff got done. And she found another opportunity at Cape that was better for her, so she left and took that role, which opened up that slot. So since a lot of the work for the applications has been done, and really weren't doing a great job on the website and the content, that is more of a communications role.
Yeah.
We repurposed the role to that communications role. And not hiring a new applications manager. And actually it's a cheaper role, so that's one of the ways I was able to balance the budget is, I think I was budgeting over $100,000 for that position. And I was able to save about $20,000 on the new communication, so we reduced the budget for that.
Rich, just a question about this, the lunch program. I know that the Food for Kids program that goes Cape-wide is okay for this year. They've found the funding and the grants to be okay for this year. But if these things continue to be slashed, I'm wondering is there a space for us to be able to take some of the money out of this account to
I think so.
contribute towards it?
I think in that probably just be a select board vote.
Okay,
As a policy decision of how to utilize that money.
okay, right.
But yeah, I think food insecurity is becoming a big issue,
It is.
and our health department has a community fridge, our COA has a nutrition program. Meals on Wheels and Food for Kids, so I think that having that money in reserve, so to speak, helps us to address those issues if they become more problematic.
Thank you.
Could you just give us a brief update on the beach plum? Are they still working on I mean, I know they filled in the pool, they put in the septic. Or what's the story on the back section there where they're hoping to get some housing?
Well, we have a tenant in the main house.
Mhm.
There's four units in the
In the
back.
back,
So we actually, one of our employees, had to have, their parents had to sell their house, so they lost their housing. And so they had to move to Florida. And so Devin works remotely from Florida, comes up occasionally, and we've been able to, we refurbished one of the units. He's able to stay there, so we have a place for remote workers that need to come in to stay, as long as it's not in the middle of winter. Because it's not winterized. But in maybe not even the spring, but the early summer through the fall, we've got a place where people can go, and we've used that a couple times for that type of thing. There is, I think I just saw just had an email, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, asking about the timing of when we wanted to meet. So I think the architect's ready to go and propose something. So that's probably something that we will be working on and see if we can get it ready for next time as the here's a proposal. Because the idea would be to, I don't know that those units are salvageable, the 4 hotel units are salvageable,
right.
but to reconstruct something
Mhm.
and maybe do some work on the main house. And, now that we've got, that wastewater is a thing. I mean, we'd have to, be a number of years before it's there, so I don't know if we wanna wait or not, but
Oh,
I don't know if that will make a difference to somebody that might want to do something there.
Mhm. Because a new septic system was put in.
It was,
Yeah.
and that's for 7 rooms, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
And that's, so the septic, the money that we put towards Beach Plum is for costs incurred to improve the property,
It's for purchase of the beach plum
for
and
purchase.
implementing the septic, because it needed a septic.
So the purchase is bonded,
Yes,
so I mean, if you stuff around over the years, 27,000, 30, this year was 125.
no, this was the first year, 125 in the first year.
First year.
Next year, it's gonna be like 98 over the decline.
Oh, okay. But we can use that money to pay for improvements as well, not just the purchase.
Oh, yeah, cool, yeah.
And whatever other housing.
But I guess my point on the septic is that it's an IA system, actually.
Yeah.
And, it takes up a big area. Obviously you can't build on that area.
Right.
But if you had a connection, they no longer, you might not be able to get any more rooms, or maybe you can. But you certainly can have more space to build where you wanna build.
How much did the IA system cost for the beach one?
I don't remember,
Mm.
but it was expensive. I'm gonna say maybe $150,000.
Wow. Aren't you glad we're avoiding that?
Now, how about the lease to locals? Is that still launching in the fall with Orleans?
It is, it's difficult working with others, but I think we're gonna make it. We had a meeting this week scheduled, but ended up having to be canceled. So in a couple weeks, we have another planning meeting set up, hopefully to start up the marketing and the planning for a September start.
So I'm just going back to the beginning here. Oops. Where we have a request for a year-end transfer of 30,665. And this, as I say, is a year-end transfer. It has nothing to do with the 200,000. That's the finance committee. This is I'll call it in-house, inside the finance, the family support package itself. Do I have a motion to approve the request from year-end transfer under MGL chapter 44 of 30,665 regarding the family support package budget preschool article? Paul? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Roy.
Roy, oh, Roy. Is there any further discussion on the year-end transfer? All in favor? Ron? Fred, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's Paul and Roy and 9, 0. Very good.
Next is Debbie does come back.
He has for the last two town meetings, is a key person for town meeting, so, it's been nice enough to come back.
I'm going on to the agenda under item number 6. Appointment updates. And at our last meeting, Roy had indicated that he was interested in not continuing on being on the strategic planning committee. And there was a conversation, and Patty spoke up at the meeting and said that she was going to be looking into it and might be interested in taking Roy's place. I know the two of you have spoken. I've spoken to both of you also. It's my understanding that Patty, you are interested in proceeding to replace Roy on the strategic planning committee. Is that correct?
If he's ready to pass the torch, I would be honored.
How do we do this with the strategic planning committee?
I'm sorry?
How do we do this with the strategic planning committee?
Well,
Do I have to let them know?
no, I'll take care of it.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to appoint Patty Anderson to the strategic planning committee, beginning fiscal year 2026.
I'll second that.
So let's see, that's me. And that's Kate. Is there any further discussion on the, Ron? No, you had your hand up, you took it down.
Sorry, I thought you were moving to a vote.
I'm sorry?
I thought you were moving to a vote. I clicked too soon.
Oh, I am now. Is there any further discussion on the decision to appoint Patty to the strategic planning committee?
We gotta stop sitting next to each other.
All in favor? Ron? Fred, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's.
I didn't vote.
I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn
I'm not supposed to vote, am I?
You can vote for yourself.
All right.
Stop being so
You
modest.
you can abstain if you'd like to abstain.
I didn't think I was allowed, I'll vote for myself.
9-0.
Make it a 9-0.
9-0. So,
It was
I
anonymously.
will be sending the, town clerk the information that the finance committee has appointed you to the strategic planning committee. And they'll get, well, you know the process, so I'm sure.
Yeah, from this.
From them, yeah. Okay, the other two items on the agenda are just really more for information. Paul, you have been appointed again by the select board to the finance committee. And Fred, you've been appointed by the moderator to the finance committee. And Peter has been appointed to the capital projects committee. Those are things that we have to vote for because that's been taken care of by, we're not the people that are voting, so. It's the moderator, the select board and the, so. That's it for item number 6. Number 7, any new business?
Mary,
Oh, sure.
it's not really, it fall in a couple spots, but, I was away and last month was a little busy, the special town meeting wastewater, so we didn't give you the update that I normally give you for, pre-year end, you know.
Oh, you're talking about finances.
Things, so,
Yeah, right.
and your things that I emailed out to you today, and the things that Mira can get out to you, there's a couple of documents. It's one on the legal size paper. Is our low state and local receipts. The status of them month by month compared to our budget, we compared to the prior year at the same time. All in all, I think we are doing well. I've had a positive surprise on motor vehicle excise. June is typically a big month for motor vehicle excise, so I expect us to be quite a bit higher than budgeted. I'm very sensitive to motor vehicle excise because it's one of the first things to go down in an economic downturn because people stop buying new cars. And new cars are what, you know, the first 3 years of owning new cars when the excise tax is the highest. So,
Yes, sir.
but we still continue to be an upswing on motor vehicle excise. I did notice, I'm looking at under local receipts, which is about in the middle of the page. Hotel motel excise, we budget 425,000. We'll have to see how much comes in that last, in this month here, we should get one more quarterly payment. It's typically not a big payment, but right now we're at 400, just about 460,000, so we're only about 35,000 or so over budget. Last year at this time, we had 522,000, so oddly, hotel motel excise is down quite a bit, but meals tax is up from 142 to 144, so I don't know how that happens. Maybe it's because cost of eating out is more expensive, so the corresponding tax is more.
Well, it certainly is more expensive. I know every time I go out, you can't get anything for less than $50 for a basic meal.
We've highlighted in yellow a couple problem areas. And I had started taking care of them a little bit this year in this FY26 budget, so they're not as severe as they might look here. Except for this cannabis excise tax. I knew, we've been talking for years now not to get overly excited about budgeting for the cannabis. And I thought we had at least another year, if not 2. But 2 new shops in Orleans, I think 2 in Brewster, and the others opening up on the Mid-Cape. And back in the day when this started, we were the only game in town from up Cape. We were the first stop. So you had people from Barnesville, Yarmouth, Dennis, Harwich, all coming down here. And now they don't need to, and it's certainly shown.
Yeah.
I haven't done the calculation, but last year we were at 188,000. Year before that was quite a bit more than that as well, maybe like 260 or something like that. And now we're down at $68,000. We budget $200,000. So hopefully we'll get, 20 or 30,000 in the last installment for this June. That'll bring us up over 100, but we're gonna be $100,000 short on that line item. Which means I gotta find another place, good thing, motor vehicle excise keeps
Yeah.
still going well.
Something is going up versus
Yeah.
to account for the one going down.
Does the earnings on investments help?
The earnings on investments are through the roof because we
Mm.
borrowed $6 million. And haven't spent, we're just starting to make a dent into that.
Right.
And with the wastewater project coming on board, well, it's a reimbursement project, we won't get the money up front. So I don't wanna overly rely on earnings on investments, cause it's typically not
Mm.
7 or 800,000 like it's been, it's usually more along the lines of 50 or 60,000. But rates are coming up, and we are doing a better job of managing our, needed
Right.
deposits, transfer them to higher earning accounts. Beach receipts,
Mhm.
I've highlighted, right now is a deficit of $70,000.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to look in today to see how we're doing through June, but, I have to take a step back. I don't know if you all realize we had a change in treasurer or treasurer collector left,
You come up, Mayor?
in May. In the town of Orleans. We have appointed just, recently the assistant, Cameron Scott, Cameron. And he will be our new treasurer collector. And he already had some pre-planned time off that couldn't be changed. So we're a little bit behind in updating, usually we like to have everything in weekly. We're probably 2 or 3 weeks behind in posting receipts. So I didn't get a good look at June. But June typically for beach receipts is a big month. And so hopefully, we'll have that big month and we won't have a deficit there. But I think what you'll notice when you look at this, other than interest and maybe motor vehicle excise, most of our local receipts are really starting to tighten. We don't have a lot of extra, which makes me nervous. We do have our financial management policy that we want to be between 80 and 85%. Typically, we're landing at 85%. And I was just talking to some of our staff today. The problem with us is most of our receipts aren't coming in till the last 2 months of the year. So it's almost impossible to know how we're doing.
Yeah.
Because by the time you find out how you're doing, it's too late to do anything about it. And so, to me, that, when we talk about the budget this next year, I think it's really important that we are at that low end of our target, at that 80% range, because we really need that cushion. If the economy falls off and people aren't coming and renting and eating out or buying new cars or going to the beach, all these things, we really need that 20% cushion. So I need to hone in on that this year to make sure that we're doing that.
Can I just, do you know, you were talking about the beach, the 70,000 issue? And the majority of the, not a majority, but a large amount comes in June. Do you remember what the June amount was for last year? I don't know.
Over 100, maybe 140,000 or something.
Mm.
24 total, no, I just have the total. Yeah, never mind.
Transfer station, at the moment, we're over budget, so that's great, we're like $46,000. Again, June is typically a big month, and I don't really have a lot of insight at how it looks this month, but that should be, 100,000 plus, hopefully. Fees, I think I've mentioned this before. I feel like that's probably gonna end up being short. I'm not thinking we're gonna get too much more in the way of fees. But the big contributor there are our fees from our cell tower rentals. Have really fallen off. We used to get over $400,000, and this year we're about 250 or so. So I'm actually gonna drill down on that issue as well, and we are gonna issue an RFP. To see if we can get some competition on new leases.
Why do you think it's down so much on the cell tower issue?
I don't have a lot of insight into that, I'm not sure, I think it's probably, I think the contract provides that they can do subleases. And perhaps there's just less subleases. When I reached out to other towns and other town managers, they all said that their cell tower revenue has been dropping off, and Truro did an RFP, Sandwich did an RFP, Mashpee had done an RFP. And they all the amounts that they're getting are substantially less than what we had been getting. So I think it's just maybe the market, maybe they don't need as many cell towers as they used to, maybe it's a bigger signal, maybe they use satellites, I'm not sure. But I might look into, there are people that specialize in this field. So, before I issue the RFP, I think I will be looking into that to see if there's any value in having someone come in. I don't know if the Outer Cape might be a unique area that might justify a higher rate. Or maybe, the market is just dried up.
So it's a consultant that specializes in
Yeah.
securing. Okay.
Rentals. Is short $76,000. Again, it's hard to say because this line, it says rentals, and there's really not a lot of rentals in here. What it really is the short-term rental application fee.
Oh.
And we had a significant increase from $50 to $375.
375.
And so that's why we budgeted $272,000. I don't know that we're gonna hit that, but again, these are all functional. We got savings in some areas and losses in others. And the bottom line is our local receipts savings is a 1.1 million at the moment. Of course, that includes 281,000 from the short-term rental that we don't close back to free cash. So, but by the time we're said and done, we have June in here, we should be about $1 million in the positive, exclusive of the short-term rentals. But I don't like to be negative on any if I can help it. So, but again, on the rentals, the heavy months are May and June. I would have thought they open up the registry, I think, in January, and so I was thinking I would know in middle of the year how that's working out. But apparently everybody waits till the last minute.
I'm wondering if, given just the whole monetary issues that we're dealing with, whether people are waiting to figure out what they're up to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Rich, I don't wanna cause an algebra problem, but is there any thought of giving people, this is cash flow. Is there any thought of giving people a discount for either paying early or whatever? If you said to me, sign up now for 26 and we'll knock $10 off your transfer, I'd give you a check tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile looking into. I did, one of our staff did go talk to the health department and the rental inspector. Anecdotally, he thinks there's some folks that used to sign up that didn't this year. Maybe those are some, the people that might have just had an occasional rental that said, for $50 I'll sign up every year, but for $375, but then you've got people with it's their livelihood renting houses, right? So.
I would echo what Paul said about an incentive, even if it's just tiny.
Right, I mean, in Florida, I have a tiny place in Florida, and if you get a 3% discount on your property taxes for paying early.
Oh, wow.
Like 90 days early, they'll knock off 3%. Sounds good to me.
M.A. Fraser does that with their billing. If you pay your bill early, they knock off 2%, so.
Cape Cod Oil. Yeah.
Yep.
And then finally, just at the bottom there, the water enterprise fund is coming in pretty good. We budget 617, we got 861, which is up about 220,000 from the prior year, but of course that reflected a rate increase during the year. And I think we're coming in on collections just about where I estimated when I did the rate projections and the rates studies for the select board to approve. So that's good to know. Of course, it's subjective in a sense that, how much water are people using? So some years water usage is up, some years it's down, depending on the rain and the weather. Of course, the issue with this rate now is when we set that rate, we assumed we had an operating cost of about $650,000. But when we got the new operations contract, it came in over $1 million. So we set a rate that ended up, it's not set for the current, but we got plenty in retained earnings to get us several years to get the rate up. Hopefully get some more people connected as well.
So are there any, I know we don't have on here what our 2026 budget is, to know whether there's items that we're really have a problem with.
The 26 budget is very similar to what's in for 25. Except for fees, I knew that was gonna start being a problem, so I whittled that down from 420 to 400. I'm probably gonna have to go down a little bit more, but then again, I can up motor vehicle excise and interest. And I know the 200,000 on the marijuana tax is
Mhm.
gonna have to go down to at least 100 grand.
Yeah.
So it's a little nerve wracking when all these things come at the end, but.
Yeah.
You know, I try not to sweat it too much. At the end of the day, we're gonna have over $1 million of savings on receipts, so. Guess I shouldn't be too nervous, but I do.
I have a separate question, Rich, and this is not within this, it's just a wondering. How are the applications coming for the residential tax exemption? I'm just curious about how many
You know,
folks have,
I think it's good. But I don't know that it's good enough, you know, I think we're up to almost 700, I think it is. Out of, we anticipate, what, 2,500?
yeah,
One way to go.
mhm. Maybe
You know, I
that's
think,
something
you know, the
else
vast
that
majority
Kayla
of
can
people
do,
Hopefully will do it when the bill comes,
right?
or,
So the bill doesn't come until, the bill doesn't come until the fall.
November 1st is the
But-
due date,
but
so,
we have another push going out,
Yeah,
I think,
that's right, you have another vote.
this week.
Is
So-
this week is gonna be?
As far as sending out notifications. to people.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the vote.
No,
If they wait until the bill comes,
that's true.
that's how we end up having to pay for what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
We don't wanna do that.
That's what worried me a little bit, and I
Right.
thought that maybe Kayla could do
Yeah.
some kind of.
Well, and I think that's the select board's decision point.
Mhm.
Was going to be, you know, 'cause there's two things, do you wanna do it? And then B, how much? And so I would really, you know, depending, and I think that's, they wanna see how many do we get? So if we end up having 1,000 by the time they gotta make their vote. That likely will influence how much they wanna start out at, and I would suggest
As far as the percentage. is
maybe at
concerned.
5%,
Mhm,
be manageable instead of 10.
mhm.
I don't know if Devin or anybody's online, but if you can bring up one of the files I sent, I'd like to put on screen.
Yeah, he should be online, yeah.
I did have another report, it's 60 some odd pages long, so I didn't make a copy for everybody, if you really would like it, you can have it. But it is on your email, which I figured is easier for you to look at. This was the local receipts report we just went over, this long one is just a system generated report off our accounting system of all our general fund appropriations. And there really isn't much to look at here, honestly. I think it's just good for you to see it. I did highlight a couple spots.
It's also through the end of the month.
Through the end of May. And that's why it's not usually, nothing comes 1/12. You know, so it's hard to say, and then at the end of the year, there's always a flurry of activity, or, you know, reaching out to vendors and everything right now, trying to get.
Compare year to year,
everything's
useful.
But basically what it indicates is that, you know, the budgets that you approve, that you see through the budget season end up in this accounting system. And you see what the charges are against them and how much is spent.
Does that also have a column for last fiscal year?
It doesn't.
For the same one, because that would be helpful.
It would be. Fortunately, our financial management system is flexible. And, I mean, if I spend an inordinate amount of time, I guess I could customize your report bunch. But I did highlight a couple things that I'll mention to you that we can look at your leisure, maybe.
Just need the page number.
It's coming up. It's the, says, the report I'm looking for says fiscal year GF year-to-date budget. There you go. That's it, thank you.
You better.
I highlighted a bunch of these, maybe when I made the copies, the highlights didn't come through. There's a couple things I wanted to point out.
It's on page 64.
Yeah.
Kidding, I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah, maybe,
I don't see
can you
highlights.
scroll down to see a highlight, please?
Patty's going through
I'm-
hers right here and there's
I don't,
no
Oh.
highlights.
I don't see highlights even on the iPad. You have the whole thing highlighted across?
Yeah, certain lines. How about page, one of the schools was one of them, things, so.
The schools was kind of towards the end, right?
Yeah, in the middle. How about page 35. Devin, can you go to page 35? Well, maybe I sent the wrong one, non-highlighted one. But this is one I wanted to point out, the school
Mm.
is outside of our purview. We don't process, we pay the bills, but we don't process them. It's at the district. You can see they have a lot of unspent money at this point. I would not expect that to be the case. Usually they're spending right down to the bottom. So at the moment, through May, they got 1,747,000 on the elementary school, technically unspent. But that will all be spent.
Well, a lot of that's encumbrances because they're paid in the summer.
Summer salaries, right?
Mhm.
And then, scroll down a little bit further. Just the next page, see the Nauset assessments,
Mhm,
Mhm.
again, a little big sum of money, almost $2 million.
mhm.
Technically looking like it's unspent, it is all going to be spent. The tech does a good job, they get their bills out early, and you see that everything's been sent to the tech already. There is a handful of areas I highlighted. The only other one I remember off the top of my head, though, I just want to point out to you, if you were to see it. Oh, page 64 was an area I wanted to.
Told you.
30 more pages, Patty.
I think I thought I did, but I
You
didn't.
didn't get there
I said it with the second to
You gotta-
last page.
You get there first.
So, per usual, just to the bottom of that page, please. The biggest budgetary savings, this comes up every year when I do the year-end review, as the health insurance is the account that has the most savings and generates the most free cash. This is one of the areas of the biggest risk. And there's a tremendous pressure on health insurance. We've been managing to do very well in the last few years through our regional health insurance joint purchase group. That we participate and self-insure with all the other towns on the Cape except for Sandwich. And that group has performed very well. Similar groups throughout Massachusetts aren't as proactive and well run as the Cape group. They saw increases, 12 was a good increase, 12%. Most were 15, 16%. One was 25%. Even the state group insurance commission, I think, was a 15% increase this year. We were 6 or 8 this year. And we're well capitalized. They have a good trust fund balance so that they are able to subsidize the rate to help avoid spikes in any given year. So, but the other thing that we've done that it's been successful, is we got our main health insurance line. That's kind of what I wanted to point out. We also have And everything gets budgeted on that one line, so the other lines are deficits, but we just haven't moved the budget. But we have an opt-out program, and it's costing us $46,000 a year. That's where we pay an employee either $2,500 or $5,000, depending on your plan, if you don't take our health insurance. That saves us,
The cost.
substantially, the cost of plans is $25,000 a year. We're saving substantial money if we can pay someone else to go on their spouse's plan. And we also implemented a high deductible health plan, which requires every employee on those plans to have what's called a health savings account, an HSA. And we're required by law to contribute to it. And so we contribute 50% of the high deductible. So a deductible is $2,000. We got to put in $1,000 into an HSA. The employees can also put into it through a payroll reporting if they want. That's starting to ramp up. I think we've got 14 or 15 people on that now. And it's a great plan. It's not for everybody, but if it fits your needs, it's a great plan. And it's about an 18% savings be on that plan versus on a more traditional plan. So that's generates some savings. So I just want to highlight those couple of things. Of course, we have another month to go, which is probably about $250,000. So that line item, the savings generated from that, historically has been about 800,000 or 900,000. It's going to be down to less than 600,000 or about 600,000 this year. Because I intentionally, especially with this year's budget cycle, tightened up the health insurance because it's getting to be a bit much. And we do need some surplus there, but not $900,000. And then finally, on page I'll go to page 65, the next page, since we're here. There's that retirement assessment that you just voted as a reserve fund transfer. And I had one more thing I wanted to point out that's actually an error that we're going to fix. It's under debt somewhere. On page 61. If we're eyeballing and scrolling through this, you'd see there's a deficit there for capital leases for just about 65,000. But that's not, it's not true. So what happened there, so I don't know that anybody goes through these links to match things up, but you might recall in FY25, the 233,000 was the amount that was budgeted for the operating budget. You went back to your budget book, you'd see that 233. But it's really Article 3C, I think it was an ad from the ambulance fund because we leased a new ambulance and we transferred $120,000 from the ambulance fund to pay for the first year of the lease. So that really ought to have been added there. And so once that is, there'll be a savings. And since it's savings from money generated from the ambulance fund, I'm not going to let that close back out to free cash. We'll send it back to the ambulance fund. So we estimated 120 just to be conservative. It actually came out to be 65. So we got extra. So we'll send it back. And that's the quick look at the expense side of things. But if that history holds true, we should be, with the health insurance a little bit down, $1 million might be optimistic, but certainly 800,000 or 900,000 savings on unspent appropriations is what I'm looking for. So $1 million or so from the receipt side, 8 or 9, $1 million on the outside, on the expense side, and that will start our free cash cycle again. So in August or so, I'll do my year-end review, and you'll see all these numbers and how they ended up playing out and how it generates free cash or not.
How does that compare with the prior fiscal year?
I think it's gonna be down less.
Yeah.
And we have certainly been tightening it up a little bit. So this year-end review will be interesting, and I think it'll give you guys some direction of as you go into the next budget cycle. And we know this is the the new year with our collective bargaining agreement, so it's likely an override year.
Mm,
Um, do we want to provide for anything within that override to make these adjustments to keep our conservative practices going? I think have, proven fruitful and good decisions, but when things change and we got to take into account the environment we're in today, or will be in next year, we got to keep those things going or not. So I guess we'll see.
do you feel that we're losing, staff for financial reasons?
I don't think so.
I mean, we've lost several people at a higher level as far as our
Yeah,
operating.
well, our salaries are competitive. Sometimes it's, I think our treasurer probably had a financial incentive to move probably.
Mhm.
Orleans just jacks up all the rates.
Mm.
So, that's tough to compete with. But, we're in the ballpark on most things. So sometimes I don't think a lot of it's financial, I think it's just circumstances. Sometimes other jobs or other communities are a better fit.
Mm.
Maybe it's closer to home. But, wages is gonna keep being a big issue. I'm actually gonna be going to, Wellfleet, talk to the town manager next week about possibly sharing up some positions. To me, that's not so much a financial thing, as it's more of a availability, you either can have somebody
Mhm.
or not.
Mhm.
Share, there's just not, the people you need aren't out there.
Aren't out there.
And, now that wastewater is passed, I don't wanna get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's probably not a bad idea if we have the thought that we want to have a water/wastewater or municipal utilities director type of position. Might be the time to do it while we're going through, value engineering and design. And somebody that has that experience at other plants might come up with operational issues that we could resolve in the design process before. Orleans plant, I was talking to their manager, there was a design flaw. Oh, you were there, Peter, with the baffling, right? With the-
Yeah.
If you picked up on that thing and designed it up front, or perhaps the correct way, I think they spent over $200,000 on getting new baffles that they gotta install after the fact. So I think there's a lot of value to having somebody like that on board as you're going through the design and construction process. And certainly you're gonna need somebody to do outreach and communications with the town, just so that we know, what roads are gonna be closed, where is construction happening, or someone's got a complaint that needs to be followed up on. With water, I think we paid someone, an outside firm, to do that. And that certainly can do it that way as well, but that comes at a cost. Obviously, they're gonna mark up their staff and their time, so. So I think that's something to be looking at, but that will be a costly position, but that might be an opportunity, because I know Wellfleet was looking, and I don't think they got any applicants.
Mm.
So might be an opportunity to craft kind of a unique position for someone that's interested in water resource management. Could you do this for the Outer Cape? That might be an interesting job.
Mhm.
So you just have to get creative about how we approach things. Have good jobs, and we gotta make sure that, honestly, the biggest key is making sure people are supported. Because most towns, give a staff position, 3 or 4 jobs, and they can't do justice to any of them, and they get frustrated. And they're not working, you're paying top dollar for someone that's doing administrative work, because you don't have administrative staff support, which is foolish. So properly supported keeps, people's morale high, it makes them working at the level they want to be working, and you're getting the full value of their expertise. So there's a lot that goes into it, but, salaries and hiring of staff is gonna continue to be probably the biggest issue we have.
What's the status of replacing Maya?
So we did promote Cam Scott, as it was the assistant, he is now the treasurer,
No.
and we have interviews for an assistant. We have, 4, had several, but we're interviewing 4, good candidates. So hopefully we'll know next week where we stand on that. And that office will then be fully staffed again. So she was, another issue I had, I should have done it sooner, but now that I'm back, I can update. We have a futures agenda. So I need to do that for FY 26, and I'll put in like the key things that are recurring that we know will be happening. But if anybody has any things, you maybe go through Mary or Peter, that they want on that futures agenda, I can put it on there, but let me send that out to you first. But I was looking at it today and I realized that usually this meeting, you have an update from the treasurer collector,
Mhm.
and without the transition going on with that.
You can't do that.
But I think what I might do is ask him to come to August, which is when you have your assessing update.
Mhm,
So we're
mhm.
assessing and treasury at the same time.
Any comments, questions? I can't see Ron or Fred, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll set this screen share now.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Ron or Fred, do either of you have any questions?
No.
No, okay. Well, thank you, Rich. I'm going to go on to the agenda here. And we're down to old business. And I didn't know whether, I know, Peter, you sent out some more recent information on the high school.
Yeah.
And we're still scheduled to be completing by December 2025.
Yep.
And I did have a question, on the contingency, or is it the contingency? Yeah, the contingency. It, we spent, the contingency was 8.8, we spent 6.4. The contingency transferred of $310,000. I don't.
I had a question on that too.
Okay. I don't understand what that
Well,
is.
they're starting to, some of the accounts have been closed out and there's extra unspent money in them.
Mhm.
So they're taking that and.
Putting it into the contingency?
Yeah.
Oh. So monies from other accounts
Yeah.
that they know aren't going to be used
Right,
are being moved, those amounts are being moved into to add to the contingency. Okay,
and we'll need every bit of that.
okay.
So right now, the contingency is 2,090,000,
Sounds about right.
That's what's remaining.
and is that considered sufficient to get us through this project?
As of this morning, it's within $100,000 of,
And
and we're trying to button it up so that we won't be getting any more change orders after mid-July, a couple more weeks. And we'll make that or not. But yeah, it's one way or the other, we're gonna get it done, I think. And that's pretty much worst case scenario.
Yeah.
A couple, hasn't historically happened yet, but every now and then something could break in your favor.
Right.
So maybe we'll get lucky and something will actually go our way.
And technology, you have 796,000,
Yeah, that's a separate budget, right?
Right.
And they have their own, right?
and they consider that to be adequate?
So.
Any other questions or comments on the Nauset Regional High School construction program? So I'm gonna go on to the school facility, and I know Jerry isn't here. I think the last time on that, we were waiting for, they were involved with an RFP, so that's probably gonna wait until the new superintendent comes on.
Well, the regional agreement discussion will wait till the new superintendent.
Right, right.
There's been little movement on that. But the facility, I think, is underway. Brewster is leading the charge on that. And they actually just got to us this week wanting our $25,000. So I think that firm that was hired to do that is ramping up and getting started.
Mhm.
We don't necessarily need the new superintendent involved to get
Yeah,
started.
yeah, the facility study. I know there wasn't any town manager report, for this week. I did pass out the last time the Vantage, well, I think you passed it out. when we met the last time, that's the last town manager report that's been published. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed this evening? Our next meeting is scheduled for July 24th. Thursday, it's a Thursday again at 4 o'clock. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Just on July 24th, what do we think our major issues are about?
I'm sorry?
What do we think our major issues will be? Like in July 24th.
No, I'll ask, which
Yeah, I wish I
might
brought,
have available.
wish I brought that, futures agenda down.
We
But
talked about
the
the
assessing and treasury.
assessing.
Thank you.
You said August, right? You said July.
I did say August.
Yeah. So we're doing it in July.
I'm sorry.
No, I have no idea.
Welcome back from Italy. Isn't it amazing how it makes you feel so good?
So we're back to our next meeting is July 24th, 2025 at 4 o'clock. It's a Thursday. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No,
No,
Out of hand.
Paul,
Don't ever touch it.
Paul and Steve? Who?
Yeah.
Paul, Steve,
Sure.
all in favor of adjourning?
Sure.
9-0.